We have to get out of here!
Let's go!
Hello, everyone. The main character of this story is Clara, a 58-year-old woman. And her story will forever change the way we look at the people we love the most. Just last week, on a glittering yacht in the middle of the night sea, her own son, Leo, handed her a glass of wine, a glass he knew could kill her. When the plan was exposed, her husband, Arthur, a gentleman who had never raised his voice in his life, used all his strength to smash a window and shouted in despair, "Jump! Clara, jump! Now!" But that was not the worst part. The worst part was when Clara realized that this horrifying tragedy began with another tragedy. A truth about the death of their eldest son, Victor, a secret that had been hidden for 5 long years. For 40 years, Clara and Arthur built a life together that anyone would admire. They lived in a penthouse where every morning sunlight touched the art pieces Clara had spent a lifetime collecting. She was once an art appraiser, someone who could see through layers of paint, brush strokes, to know what was real and what was fake. Perhaps she became too good at judging objects and forgot how to truly see a person. Arthur was a history professor, a pure soul, like the old pages of a book. He believed in kindness, in truth, and above all, in family. His hands were meant to turn the pages of history, not to fight against cruelty. They had 2 sons, Victor, the eldest, and Leo, 5 years younger. Victor was the son of this home, bright, honest, and kind-hearted. He studied law, becoming the endless pride of his parents. Victor often said that the law existed to protect people like his father, those who trusted too easily. Leo, however, was different, quieter, always with a shadow in his eyes. But a mother's love makes no distinction. Clara loved him with everything she had. At least, that's what she always believed. Then tragedy struck. 5 years ago, Victor died. The police said it was an accident, a slip down the stairs on a rainy night. Clara's heart shattered. She cried every tear she had at his funeral. Arthur collapsed into grief, aging a decade overnight. In those darkest days, only Leo and his wife Sophie stayed close. Leo suddenly became attentive, taking care of his father, comforting his mother. Sophie, a lifestyle blogger, visited often, bringing expensive meals and sweet words. Clara believed it was their way of coping with loss, that they were trying to fill the emptiness Victor had left behind. But she was wrong. Leo wasn't filling the emptiness. He was building a perfect mask to hide the monster inside. 5 years passed. The pain softened. Leo and Sophie seemed successful. Leo a stockbroker, Sophie flaunting luxury trips and designer goods online. Everything appeared normal again, until 6 months ago. One Sunday evening after dinner, Leo called his parents into the study. His face was serious. "Dad, Mom," he began, placing a neatly bound folder on the table. "I've been thinking a lot about this." Inside was a proposal to move Clara's entire art collection, the family's greatest legacy, into a family trust. Leo would manage it, with the help of financial experts. A way, as he put it, to protect their legacy safely for generations to come. It sounded reasonable, thoughtful, like the idea of a dutiful son caring for his parents. But at that very moment, a chill ran down Clara's spine. The way Leo said words like legacy, protection, management. It didn't sound like a son speaking. It sounded like a salesman's pitch. Arthur, however, was convinced. His eyes lit up with pride. Clara hesitated and asked, "Leo, why are you suddenly thinking about this?" And that was when Leo struck at their weakest point. He sighed, looking far away. "Actually, This was Victor's idea. Clara's heart tightened. Arthur froze. Leo continued, lowering his voice. A few weeks before he died, Victor told me he was worried. About you. About the art collection. He had even started drafting this plan. I just want to finish his last wish. A perfect lie. 1 arrow, 2 targets. Leo made himself look like a devoted brother and turned any doubt into betrayal of Victor's memory. How could they refuse? That night, after Leo and Sophie left, Clara lay awake. Arthur whispered beside her. Our son has really grown up, hasn't he? He's looking out for us. Clara said nothing, because deep down, she knew something was wrong. The way Leo avoided her gaze when mentioning Victor. The flicker of panic in Sophie's eyes when she heard her husband lie. It was just like spotting a forged painting, perfect on the surface. But the trained eye knows. Something is off. Something deadly hides behind the beauty. Clara made a decision. She would uncover the truth, not knowing that this decision would lead both her and her husband onto a journey straight to death. The following weeks passed under a strange tension. Leo and Sophie began visiting more often, but their visits no longer felt like family gatherings. They always brought folders, detailed plans for the family trust. Leo spoke passionately about legal terms and tax benefits. Sophie sat beside him, nodding sweetly, stroking Clara's arm. See, Mom, with this trust, you won't have to worry about anything. You can just enjoy your golden years. They spoke of safety, of protection for the future. But Clara didn't see concern in their eyes. She saw calculation. Their glances lingered on the paintings and antiques, not with admiration, but like appraisers sizing up property. Arthur, however, trusted them completely. He listened to Leo with open pride. To him, this was proof that his youngest son had finally matured, finally cared about family. Every time Clara voiced her unease, he brushed it aside. You're too harsh, Clara. The boy just wants to do the right thing. But Clara couldn't forget Leo's lie about Victor. One night after they left, she acted. She entered Victor's old study, kept almost untouched since his death. She turned on his computer. She searched through every file, every email, every note, looking for any trace of a family trust or legacy plan. 3 hours later, she found nothing. No drafts, no emails, nothing at all. It confirmed her fear. Leo had made it all up. He had used the memory of his dead brother to manipulate their parents. The next morning, Clara showed Arthur. She pointed at the empty computer screen. See, there's nothing here. Leo lied. Arthur stared for a long time, his face full of sorrow. Finally, he sighed. Maybe Victor just told him in person. You know they had their own conversations. Don't rush to judge, Clara. It's unfair to the boy. Clara realized Arthur didn't want the truth. He preferred a comforting lie over a terrible reality about his son. In that moment, she knew she was completely alone. But Clara couldn't stop. She needed to know the real reason behind the trust. The answer came suddenly, and it was terrifying. A few days later, Sophie called. She said she had left a silk scarf in the guest room. Clara went to look for it. The scarf was draped on a chair. As she picked it up, she accidentally knocked over the small trash bin. Crumpled scraps spilled onto the floor. One piece caught her eye. It was a torn receipt. Not for shopping. It was a debt notice. Borrower: Leo. Amount: $200,000. Status: overdue. At the bottom, in red ink, final warning. Clara froze. Her whole body turned cold. Now she understood. The luxury trips, the designer clothes, the perfect image online. All of it built on mountains of debt. Leo was drowning, and desperate men will do anything. At that moment, Clara's phone rang. It was Leo. His voice was cheerful, too cheerful. "Mom, I've got amazing news. Do you remember your 40th wedding anniversary? I've prepared a special gift. I've rented a private yacht for the weekend. Just us. Dad, you, Sophie, and me. We'll celebrate. And finish the trust paperwork at the same time. Perfect, right?" Clara sat in silence. A private yacht. Only 4 people. Out in the endless sea. The perfect stage for an accident. She stared at the debt notice in her hand. Every piece fell into place. This was no invitation. This was a death sentence. Clara swallowed her terror and answered in a calm, chilling voice. "Oh, that's wonderful, son. Your father will be so happy." That night, Clara showed Arthur the debt notice. She didn't say a word, only placed it on his desk. Arthur adjusted his glasses, squinting at the numbers. His hands began to tremble. He read it again and again, as if refusing to believe his eyes. Finally, he looked up, his gentle face now pale with shock. What does this mean, Clara?" "It's the real reason behind the trust," she said coldly, "and the real reason for the yacht." Arthur shook his head, desperately denying it. "No, he's just having financial trouble. He was too ashamed to tell us. He would never. He couldn't harm us." "I don't believe it." Clara gripped his shoulder firmly. "Arthur, listen. Connect the pieces. First, he lied about Victor. Second, he owes a massive debt. And now he's arranging a trip, isolated, just the 4 of us. Don't you see? This is a plan." Arthur dropped his head into his hands. Clara heard the muffled sobs of a broken father. The pain of realizing your son is planning to kill you was unbearable. At last, Arthur looked up. There was no denial left in his eyes, only horror and bitter truth. "So, what do we do? Call the police? Cancel the trip?" "If we cancel," Clara said firmly, "he'll know we suspect. He won't stop, Arthur. He'll find another way. A fake robbery, an accident at home. At least on the yacht, we know the plan. We know what we're facing." Arthur stared at her, stunned. "You mean, we'll still go?" "Yes," she answered. "But we'll go prepared." Clara brought out a small box. Inside was a black lacquer fountain pen. She twisted it gently, revealing a tiny charging port. "This isn't an ordinary pen," she explained. "It's a recorder." Arthur's eyes widened as he understood. "Before we leave, I'll charge it fully. You'll keep it in your chest pocket. It can record 12 hours straight. Every word, every sound on that yacht will be captured. If we survive, we'll have proof. And if we don't—" Her voice broke. She couldn't finish the sentence. Arthur said nothing. He only held the pen tightly. In that moment, Clara knew. His innocence was gone. Now they were a team. 2 aging souls preparing to fight for survival, against their own blood. The following days were hell. They had to pretend. Pretend to be happy. Pretend to be excited. Leo and Sophie came again, helping with preparations. Sophie brought Clara a white maxi dress. "This will look perfect on you, Mom," she chirped. "I'll take such beautiful photos of you on the yacht." Her hand touched Clara's shoulder. But all Clara felt was ice. The last photo of my life. Perhaps that's what she meant. Leo brought a bottle of fine wine. "This one is special, Dad. Let's save it for that night." Clara stared at the bottle, wondering how much poison it already contained. Every smile, every gesture of care, now looked like a threat. Their home was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a stage, and they were forced to act as the happy parents, waiting for their execution. Finally, Saturday arrived. Leo drove up in a luxury car. He and Sophie were dressed in expensive resort clothes, radiant and joyful. Ready for your adventure? Mom and Dad? Leo called out. Clara forced a smile, fragile as glass. Before leaving, she handed the pen to Arthur. He quietly slipped it into his pocket. Their only weapon, their only hope. The drive to the harbor took 2 hours. Sophie played cheerful music, humming along. Leo drove carefully, obeying every rule. Of course, he couldn't let a random car accident ruin his perfect plan. When they arrived, the yacht was waiting. It was larger, more luxurious than Clara had imagined. White and gleaming under the sun, floating against the endless blue sea. "Welcome aboard Legacy," Leo announced proudly. "That's what I named it." Meaningful, isn't it? Clara's chest tightened. Legacy. Such a cruel, mocking name. Leo and Sophie stepped up first, then reached back to help their parents. Leo's hand gripped Clara's, the same hand she once held when he took his first steps. Now, it was leading her to her last. As her foot touched the deck, Clara felt it. Not wood, but the lid of an open coffin. The sea was calm, the sky was clear, and the smiling faces of her would-be killers surrounded her. It was perfect. A perfect trap. The yacht glided into open waters. The sea breeze was gentle, the waves soft against the hull. Leo and Sophie acted like perfect hosts, pouring champagne, pointing to islands in the distance, telling dull little jokes. Clara and Arthur played along. They sat on white armchairs, glasses in hand, smiling at the right moments. But inside, Clara raged a storm. The bright sky, the calm sea, all mocked her terror. Every sip of wine, she wondered, is this my last? Arthur wasn't calm either. He asked Leo harmless questions about the boat's engine, but Clara saw his shoulders stiff, his chest tight. She knew he could feel the pen in his pocket, heavy with fear, heavy with hope. An hour passed. The land was only a faint line on the horizon. Then Leo clapped his hands. "Enough sightseeing. Let's go inside. I've got something to show you." They entered the main cabin, polished wood, leather seats, shining decor. Leo laid a folder on the table. The trust contract. "Now that we're all relaxed," he said with a bright smile, "we just need to sign a little paperwork." The trap was closing. Sophie walked to the minibar. "To celebrate this special moment," she said, "we need a special wine." She brought out the bottle Leo had given them days before. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. She poured 2 glasses of deep red liquid and set them before Clara and Arthur. "Please, Mom and Dad," she said sweetly. "This wine is to toast our family." Clara stared at the glass. Red, like blood. This was it, the moment she had feared. She couldn't refuse, not without revealing everything. Her fingers shook as she reached for the glass. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit her, perhaps from stress, perhaps just her imagination. But she seized it. She pressed a hand to her forehead, closing her eyes. "Oh," she whispered weakly. "I'm sorry. I think I'm seasick. My head is spinning." A perfect excuse. Arthur rushed to her side. "Clara, are you all right? Let me take you to bed." He played his role perfectly, the worried husband. Clara leaned on him, stumbling toward their cabin. "I'll be fine," she told Leo and Sophie. "I just need to rest a little." The door closed. The masks fell. "They've done it," Clara whispered urgently. "It's in the wine. Don't drink it, Arthur." A knock came instantly. Leo's voice, still syrupy. "Mom, are you okay? Do you need help?" The door opened. Leo and Sophie stepped inside. The lock clicked behind them. No escape. Clara met her son's eyes. "What did you put in the wine, Leo?" The masks shattered. Sophie snapped first, her face twisted with rage. "You should have drunk it. It would have been quick. Just a heart attack and it'd all be over." A confession. Clear. Horrifying. The pen recorded every word. Leo saw her mistake, but it was too late. His expression hardened, turning cruel. "If I have to die," he snarled, "then we all die together." He lunged for the corner, where the small gas stove was. A hiss filled the room. The stench of gas spread fast. Sophie screamed in panic. She hadn't expected this. But Arthur acted. The gentle professor, now desperate. His eyes scanned the room. He grabbed a bronze statue from the desk and hurled it at the cabin window. Crash! The glass cracked like a spiderweb. Leo spun around, furious. "What are you doing?" he shouted, rushing at his father. Arthur swung again. Crash! The window shattered. Sea air roared inside, a way out. Arthur didn't look at his son. He turned to Clara, his eyes blazing with love and despair. He shouted louder than she had ever heard in 40 years of marriage. "Jump! Clara, jump now!" Clara stood frozen. Before her, the endless sea. Behind her, the gas, the madness of her son. In her ears, Arthur's desperate cry. She closed her eyes, and she jumped. The impact with the freezing water stole Clara's breath. Her body screamed in pain. The world spun. Sky and sea became one. But survival instinct took over. She kicked and clawed upward, breaking the surface, gasping for air. Arthur surfaced a few meters away. They were alive. Then it came, a deafening roar behind them. Clara turned and saw a vision that would haunt her forever. The yacht Legacy exploded into a ball of fire, hurling burning debris into the sky. Legacy, a cruel name for a cruel plan. The so-called inheritance was gone, consumed by flames. Leo and Sophie sank beneath the waves, buried with their schemes. Silence fell after the blast. Only the ocean remained, and floating wreckage. Arthur swam closer. They clung to a plank of wood, shivering, not only from the cold, but from the horror. Arthur whispered, his voice cracked. "Clara, the pen, it's still here." He tapped his chest pocket. The recorder, soaked but safe, the single witness to everything. Their only hope for justice for Victor. Time blurred as they drifted. Pain, grief, the chill of death crawling into their bones. Clara almost gave up. But each time she faltered, Arthur gripped her hand. "Hold on," he said. "For Victor." Then, faint, distant, an engine. Light on the horizon, a fishing boat. They had been found. The feeling of being lifted from the sea, wrapped in a blanket, sipping hot tea. Words could never describe it. They were saved. The fishermen called the Coast Guard. Soon, Clara and Arthur were taken ashore, still in shock. At the station, officers treated them as victims of a tragic accident, a gas explosion. Nothing more. But when the room cleared, only the couple and 2 detectives remained. Clara spoke. It wasn't an accident. Arthur pulled the pen from his pocket, laying it on the table. Everything is in here. The truth about what happened on that yacht, and the truth about Victor's death 5 years ago. The detectives exchanged doubtful glances. Still, they plugged the pen in. The recording played. Voices filled the room. Leo's false cheer, Sophie's sweet tone, the clinking of glasses. And then, her scream. "You should have drunk it. It would have been quick." The detectives froze. They heard Leo's furious roar, the hiss of gas, the crash of breaking glass, and finally, Arthur's desperate shout, "Jump!" The room fell silent. But the truth was undeniable. The investigation reopened at once, with the recording as confession. And evidence of Leo's debts and fraud, the whole story emerged. Victor's death had never been an accident. He had confronted Leo about his schemes. In the struggle, Leo killed him. One lie led to another. One crime birthed another, until it all consumed them. Justice was done, but at a terrible cost. Clara had lost both her sons, one murdered by his own brother, the other destroyed by his greed. At night, she still asked herself, could she have done something different? Had she been blind to the monster growing inside her own home? That guilt would never leave her. But Clara and Arthur were still alive. They still had each other. The very next day, they went to see a lawyer. Leo had named the yacht Legacy in hopes of stealing it. But now, they would create a true legacy. They decided to sell the entire art collection. All the money would go into a scholarship fund, a fund named after their eldest son, the Victor Scholarship. It would support law students with talent but little means. It would fulfill Victor's dream, to use the law to protect the innocent, the gentle. People like his father. That would be their legacy. A legacy born from the ashes of lies, turning pain into hope. It would keep Victor's name alive, honored, unbroken, eternal. And it would be the only way Clara and Arthur could keep on living.